Welcome to Bold Talk series where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Jonathan Brun, CEO and founder of Nimonik. Jonathan, great seeing you. Welcome to our Bold Talks. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great, Jonathan. I love your voice. Your voice, do you do podcasting or I'm trying to get the voice like you, man.
No, they've asked me to be in choirs and things like that, but I don't have the musical,
Okay.
abilities. So, anyways,
Awesome. So great to meet you. Thanks for joining me. This is a short format conversation. Thought it would be nice to get to know you and just tell us about your story. So maybe just walk us into the journey of with Nomic and what inspired you to start the company.
yeah, sure. So I studied engineering, did metallurgical engineering, so that's the production of metals. So I worked in gold mines and steel mills, and I had a work experience where I worked in China for about a year. This is back in 2006, and I saw sort of some of the environmental damage and safety issues at these steel factories around China when I was there, and decided to reorient my career towards environmental compliance, environmental issues. This was when sustainability was starting to come onto the scene back in 2007. So I joined a small consulting firm, and they had started building a system to help businesses stay in compliance with laws and regulations, and particularly environmental laws and regulations. And that product wasn't really working within the consulting business. So I basically proposed that I would buy it from them and try and turn it into a standalone business. So that's how we started Mnemonic. Is we took a sort of an embryon of an idea, which was to build a tool to help businesses stay in compliance with the laws and regulations that apply to them. Originally just environment. Since then it's grown a lot. And then we started building the business. We've modified a lot of things. Things have changed a tremendous amount since 2008. So we started the independent company in May of 2008. So it's been about 17 years now since we started the business. But it started with this idea of just helping businesses stay up to speed on laws, regulations, and standards, and help them stay in compliance.
Nice. And these are businesses, I assume they're all over the world, right? Or
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we started in Canada, so the headquarters is based in Montreal, Canada, but we have offices in the U.S. and in China, and we'll be opening an office in Europe shortly. So it's all over the world. Definitely a little bit more leans towards Canada, U.S., China, because that's where we have physical operations. But we've got customers all over the place and across all industries. So we got customers everything from aerospace to pharmaceutical to mining. So basically, any business that has a pretty large footprint and therefore is subject to a fair amount of laws, regulations, and engineering standards. Those are our customers. Those are the people that want to invest in a platform that makes their life a little bit easier when it comes to compliance.
interesting. Now, these things are changing all the time, especially in the today climate, the political climate that we have, which is sometimes is so confusing. How do you stay ahead of this curve when it comes to evolving global regulations and trends?
Yeah, so about half of the headcount of the company, we're about 52 people, I think. About half are people who are actively monitoring regulations, publications coming from different places, governments, industry bodies. We have developed software to help us collect the data, clean the data, and then load it into our system to push it out to the customers based on their subscription. If they're interested in the US, they get the US stuff, Europe, Europe, etc. So it's basically a combination of humans and software tools and some AI that we've built over the years. It's not a process that's fully automated, nor do I think can it ever be fully automated. But we've streamlined it a fair bit, and it allows us. We have about 42 countries in the database now, and about 500 jurisdictions when you start counting states and provinces. Like in the U.S., there's 50 states. Canada, there's 10 provinces. So it's a combination of people and tech, basically.
Nice. Now, obviously, every business AI is being impacted. A lot of businesses are applying AI. There's a rise of these AI agents. What role do AI and data play in transforming the future compliances and audit management?
Well, I think AI, when we talk about AI these days, most people are talking about the large language models. So, the GPTs of this world. And when we're talking about large language models, I think what they're really good at is searching through large bodies of information and kind of condensing it and giving you summaries, giving you analysis, and sometimes giving you some specific actions that we'll recommend. So we've implemented that into a significant part of the software. There's still a lot more to do. We've built chatbots that have the regulations that are up to date. We've built some tools that allow you to pinpoint which requirements apply to you based on, you put in some prompts like, I'm a oil and gas company, we operate in Texas, I'm doing this, and this. So it basically allows us to analyze data on a much larger scale, much faster and much cheaper when compared to traditional methods of humans, basically lawyers and consultants. So I'd say that's the real sort of superpower that is given a
Mhm.
lot of companies, and we're trying to deploy this quickly, but also making sure it's done, properly, because people pay companies like ours to have a certain level of confidence that the information they're getting is complete, accurate, and up to date. So leaning too much on AI, might create some risk and liability there, which we want to avoid. So it's a
Yeah.
balancing act, but it's going pretty well.
Yeah, and even with the other things that are not so serious as the compliances, you always need a human in the loop to make sure that there's a human that checks in verification of the information and so on, because it's all based on the uh, training of these large language models. Now, uh, how do you balance scaling mnemonic with maintaining the quality and integrity of your organization? There's this fine balance, and and who is that person that makes a decision on the other side to go for it? Is it the compliance person from a company?
Yeah, so the buyers for our product are typically chief compliance officers, environmental health safety directors. So they're responsible for the environmental and health and safety compliance. Also, head of engineering, quality people. Basically folks who are in charge of making sure that the company does fulfills its responsibilities properly and completely. So we have a few different buyers. Depends on the company and depends on their needs. In terms of scaling, I mean, Mnemonic is scaled organically through just growth. We're bootstrapped, so we never raised any sort of money. I own the majority of the company, and there's some other small shareholders, and so we run a very lean organization. And very early on, around 2013, we figured out that scaling this business was going to be challenging because of the nature of the industry. It's a fairly slow buying cycle.
Hmm.
Um, so we decided to try and see if we could do some acquisitions. And so we've purchased 5 companies so far uh, over the course of the time that we've run the business. And that's allowed us to grow in a kind of controlled manner. We're buying companies that are pretty similar to us, similar not just in size, but also in company culture and in terms of their product. And so we really look for a fit on those 3 vectors. We're not just looking at monetary elements. We're really looking at culture, product, and their customer base. And that's really helped us tremendously because we can take the best parts of all of these companies and kind of stick them together rather than trying to reinvent the wheel ourselves. There's a lot of people out there, very smart people who've built great companies. And when we do the acquisitions, we don't just say, oh, give us your clients and we're done. We bring on the people, we keep them, and we bring on the best parts of their products and their businesses and try and make ourselves stronger.
Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of times when you look at some M&As, they fail terribly because they don't really look at that part
Hmm.
per se, the cultural fit. Even like recruiting, for example, in the companies, right? They just look for those. A lot of them they look for that skills, performance, and but then when it comes to the culture fit, they don't. I mean, they look at it, but not in a way that they should look. Uh, so M&A is difficult. Leadership is difficult. How do you lead this when it comes to having this new organization joining you and make that part of the culture?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the American television show The Office, and in this show, there's the manager of The Office. He says, "I'm writing a management book," and the management book's called "Somehow I Manage." And when you open the book, it's all blank pages. Um, and so, I think a lot of leadership or management is sort of just figuring out as you go. There's no sort of grand master plan, and it's all about people. So finding the right people that can run different parts of the business, run teams. I'm not good at everything, so finding complementary people who are good at stuff that I'm bad at. Um, I don't have some overarching like management philosophy or leadership philosophy. Obviously, I try to lead through example, um, but it's really about, I think, a lot of it's just finding the right people that want to join our mission and that are going to do things really well. And that sounds easy, and it's something that I read many, many years ago, but doing it is extraordinarily hard. Finding those right
Yeah.
people and getting them into the right position is probably, I think, the hardest part of leadership. Um, and so that's something that, certainly we put a lot of emphasis on. But what I've read so many business books over the years. And the one thing that I've taken away is that there's no one size fits all. There's great companies out there who've been built by introverts, great companies who've been built by extroverts. You don't need to be a specific way to build a successful business. I mean, that's certainly one thing I've
Yeah.
learned over the years.
Yeah, actually, I was on a conference a week ago. It was about the digital transformation and in leadership, and they were talking about what's needed this digital transformation. It needs a transformation leader, and something came out which I didn't really hear. They talked about the transformational leader needs to be also situational leader, right? So they
Mm.
has to have this, which they brought. This really interesting. They talked about the IQ and EQ, which we all know, but then the spiritual quotient, which was really important. And that's something that you learn by by doing and by just looking at the situation, because every situation is very different. So that's a really good point. Now. Jonathan, is there a book that helped you change how you lead or how you run a business? And if there is, what that book is? What is
Yeah, I
it?
mean, there's a few books for sure. So, one that I read when I was fairly young was Good to Great by Jim Collins, very famous business book. And I've read most of Jim Collins' books. I think they're all quite solid. More recently, one that was very useful for us at
You
Mnemonic.
talking
Yeah, there you
about
go. Yeah, yeah, that one. Yeah, exactly. Um, so that's a classic. I think it applies sometimes a bit more to large companies than it does to small. But the book that I found quite helpful for our situation of being a bootstrapped, relatively small company was Scaling Up, which is by Vern Harnish. It's a pretty well-known sort of framework for growing a business, and where they, focus on, this is 4 pillars to growing a business: operations, cash flow, strategy, and people. And then they, there's a bunch of things in there that you can do. So that book really helped us sort of stay focused and concentrated, and build up the business. We started using that framework probably around 2018, and it was quite beneficial. So I always recommend that to anybody who's trying to build a small to medium sized business. If you're running a Fortune 500, there's other books out there, but we're
yeah,
not there yet.
that's true. But one day, right? Maybe.
One day, sure.
If there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, Jonathan, what does the word bold mean to you?
I think bold means, in Yiddish, is a word called chutzpah, which is sort of similar. It's sort of just going out there and doing it without necessarily asking for permission, and just taking action when nobody's telling you to take action. If there's one sort of skill set that I always recommend everybody work on, is initiative, or being bold and taking action, without someone saying, "Hey, go do this and go do that." That's really what differentiates, in my mind, sort of
Yeah.
great from good, is being bold and taking action, and taking initiative.
Fantastic. Jonathan, thanks for joining me. Always be bold. Congrats for all your greatness. Thank you for joining me again, and looking forward to seeing you. Until next time, take care, be great, and be bold.
Thanks, Epi. Have a great day.
Cheers.